Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me here on our fascinating journey into the astounding and jaw-dropping world of numismatics, where the most innocuous and humble coins in your pocket can hide mind-blowing stories, extraordinary value, and rare quirks that make them legendary. Today we're diving deep into the legendary 1944 wheat penny that has commanded an astonishing $48 million at auction, an eye-popping price that seems almost too incredible to believe, yet it reflects a culmination of errors, mistakes, improbable possibilities, and the feverish passion of collectors willing to pay whatever it takes to secure a piece of history. So settle in, because this is a roller coaster of minting mishap, rarity, speculation, and sheer dollar signs, and we're about to explore, in exhaustive detail, every twist and turn that has propelled a simple 1-cent coin toward astronomical valuation. A journey that begins with the basic facts. The 1944 Lincoln wheat penny was supposed to be made of zinc coated with a thin layer of copper, because during World War II, copper was diverted for the war effort and prior copper cents from 1909 to 1942 had been made of bronze. But in 1943 the U.S. Mint switched to using steel coated with zinc. Then in 1944 they returned to the copper plan, using leftover copper from spent shell casings to strike cents. And here is where things get interesting. A few stray blanks of the older 95% copper, 5% zinc composition remained in inventory and accidentally got fed into the presses alongside the intended new bronze planchets, resulting in the accidental striking of a small number of coins in the 1944 date that were made of the wrong alloy, creating what numismatists call 1944 copper cents, or 1944 bronze cents, which are striking in their unintended nature, because they are anomalies born of a transitional period, errors that seem almost improbable, and that rarity, coupled with the undeniable visual and tactile difference that experienced collectors can detect, has created a potent combination. So what exactly makes a 1944 wheat penny cost $48 million? Let's leave the answer hanging for a moment and turn to the errors and mistakes that make this coin come alive for collectors. Because first and foremost, the mistaken use of copper planchets meant that very few of these coins exist. Most sources estimate that maybe only a handful, perhaps less than 20 such specimens are known, possibly even fewer. Because the vast majority of copper planchets were eliminated in the minting quality control process before and after striking, but a small number escaped notice, slipped through quality assurance, and entered circulation or were saved by collectors who spotted the odd look. These errors therefore carried the weight of extreme rarity, reinforced by the unmistakable fact that they look like typical bronze composition cents of decades prior, and in many cases, under standard lighting and to the naked eye, they appear darker, heavier, denser, even emitting a slightly different ringing sound when struck, giving them an almost supernatural aura that hints at their mistake. This sense of wrong composition, right date, impossible combination, makes them objects of obsession among collectors. And yet beyond the mistaken alloy, there may be other mistakes. There could be doubling errors or die cracks, maybe a double die obverse or reverse die or repunched mint mark or off-center strike. They might show partial die breaks, lamination errors, die clashing, or other post-mint damages that some consider character, and that can influence value in unexpected ways. But in the core, it's the copper versus steel/zinc composition that forms the bedrock of scarcity and mystique. Collectors love contingency. What could have been but didn't, a coin that was never meant to exist, a ghost in the record books. That's what the 1944 copper wheat penny embodies. And when a coin like that surfaces, in an auction or through an institution, suddenly everyone wants to own it. Because owning one is like holding a piece of fluke history, a tangible reminder of manufacturing mistakes that happen because of war, because of human oversight, because systems can never be perfect. Speaking of war, during World War II, copper was commandeered for ammunition and military hardware, prompting the mint to adapt. But the 1944 copper cents are a peculiar vestige of that transition, an unintended lingering of an earlier era. Like a time traveler's souvenir, and that historical context adds immeasurable emotional value to the coin, beyond the alloy, because it connects to wartime production, resource scarcity, and a moment when every ounce of material was being shifted into defense. So to own a 1944 copper wheat penny feels like holding a fragment of global conflict in your hand, a whisper from a moment when material and attention were hyper-focused. And once only a few of these coins are known to exist, the value speculation grows. Coins are graded by condition, from poor to mint state, and 1944 copper pennies vary in quality. Some may show wear from circulation, some may remain in uncirculated condition with lustrous surfaces and sharp details, and a high-grade 1944 copper penny could command exponentially more than a heavily worn one. Imagine two specimens, one a fine, circulated example worth perhaps a few $100,000 to the most fervent collector, another an uncirculated gem with perfect luster. Grading MS-67 or even MS-68, that could literally break multi-million-dollar records. And indeed, the $48 million coin, if authentic, was surely an extremely high-grade, certified example, slabbed by a leading grading service, authenticated for composition and details, and then sold in an emotionally charged bidding frenzy among elite collectors and institutions. The hype around any sale like that grows exponentially, fueled by auction publicity, press releases, media headlines such as "World Record 1-cent coin sells for $48 million," and speculation from numismatic commentators, all driving public fascination. And as the price goes up, every collector's heart starts pounding at the possibility that their own backyard coin jar might hold something similar. This dream elevator of value is powerful and contagious. Further, there are possibilities beyond composition. Could a 1944 copper cent also have a mintmark mistake? The vast majority were struck at Philadelphia, which didn't use a mint mark at the time, but maybe a Philadelphia coin was somehow struck with a D over P mintmark error or S over P, or vice versa. Such anomalies compound rarity and elevate value further. Or what if one such coin is struck on a lamination error planchet, or with a clipped planchet, or with a unique die polish line or filled die, or some die pairing that is unique? Each extra error attribute can multiply value in unpredictable ways, because now you're not just collecting a copper 1944, you're collecting a copper 1944 with a specific error or doubling, a subvariety that collectors might be uniquely passionate about, and that potential drives up bidding as, "I don't just want a copper coin, I want the most dramatic, one-of-a-kind variety." So the $48 million figure becomes more plausible when you imagine multiple error features combined in one piece. Moreover, the possibilities for fraudulent counterfeits and recreations exist, and these flood the market, making authentication absolutely paramount. Cutting-edge techniques like X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy can verify metal composition, and grading services like PCGS or NGC can encapsulate and certify the coin, giving buyers confidence. And that certification allows a coin to approach its full potential value rather than being suspect. The presence of certification removes doubt and invites institutional bidders like renowned numismatic dealers, wealthy private collectors, museums, even governments or banks to take part in bidding wars. And when you have billionaire collectors, or even millionaires with a passion for history in the room, incremental bids of hundreds of thousands or millions become standard, pushing a coin's price upward into the tens of millions. Of course, that raises the possibility of a sale that becomes legendary. For example, imagine a storied auction house like Stack's Bowers or Heritage Auctions or Sotheby's offering the coin in a high-profile sale, widely publicized in the press, covered on numismatic forums, in collector magazines, in YouTube channels, podcasts, and beyond, writing headlines like, "Magnificent 1944 copper wheat cent sets records at $48 million." Such media coverage amplifies the coin's mythical status, creating a feedback loop. The higher the price, the more people talk about it. The more people talk about it, the more some might go hunt for similar errors. The more that happens, the more one coin. Next, 1945 wheat penny. Today we're zeroing in on the fabled 1945 wheat penny that, through a cascade of errors, curiosities, misprints, and unlikely circumstances, is said in certain circles to be worth an astonishing $32 million. And that number alone is so eye-popping that it triggers questions like how can a coin from 1945, a humble cent, possibly be worth the kind of money that typically belongs to grand estates, luxury yachts, or blockbuster film budgets? Why so much? What went wrong? What errors? What story lies behind it? What possibilities spring from it? And what lessons does it hold for collectors, historians, speculators, and casual observers alike? So buckle in and let's plunge headfirst into this labyrinth of minting mishaps and financial marvels, starting with the coin itself in its base form. A Lincoln wheat penny, minted in 1945. The reverse featuring two stalks of wheat flanking the words United States of America, e pluribus unum, and 1 cent, the obverse. Showing Abraham Lincoln's profile, an unassuming, iconic American penny, produced in the millions, distributed widely, with face value of 1 cent, a workaday coin meant for everyday commerce, and yet, within this ordinary, mass-produced artifact lies the key to an extraordinary fortune. But of course it's not any ordinary 1945 penny that commands such value, it's one, or more likely a class, of errors and mistakes that transformed it into something exceptionally rare, and in some reported accounts, a single specimen has been valued at $32 million, though those figures exist at the fringe of market lore and speculation, blended with sensationalism, myth, and occasionally credible auction estimates. So it's vital to unpack the kinds of errors that can elevate a common penny into a multi-million-dollar treasure. And what makes the 1945 wheat penny so exceptionally expensive in this case, starting with the most dramatic and talked about, the double die error, where hub misalignment or mispolishing during the die creation process resulted in doubling of design elements, the date, the lettering, creating bold, distinct doubling visible to the naked eye or under magnification, especially on the obverse where the date, 1945, might show ghostly echoes of itself, or on the motto e pluribus unum where the letters appear to have a shadow or ghost outline, and this kind of error, particularly if strongly struck, prominently visible, and on a coin in mint state condition, can elevate value significantly, potentially into the thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, but not millions, unless combined with other anomalies. So while a dramatic double-die 1945 penny could indeed be extremely valuable, the $32 million figure likely incorporates additional layers of error or extenuating factors. Another error possibility is an off-center strike where the coin blank wasn't properly centered in the coin press, causing part of the design to be cut off, often by up to tens of percent, yielding an incomplete, and visually startling, image. Though these coins are typically not worth the kind of value we're talking about unless an unusual combination with exceptional rarity, or extremely severe off-center with overlapping patterns and pristine condition, so hard to justify multi-million status alone, then there's double denomination or mule errors. An utterly rare type of minting oddity where two dies intended for different denominations or designs are mistakenly paired, producing a coin with mismatched features. In theory, a 1945 Lincoln cent obverse paired with a reverse of another coin or denomination, or vice versa, could yield a unique, ground-shaking collectible of enormous value, and such mules are almost unheard of, especially among the small denomination coins, so if such a specimen were confirmed, authenticated by experts, and unencumbered by damage, it might reach extreme prices, the kind of 7 or 8 figure auction result. But again, 32 million would require near mythical status. Perhaps the only known example of such a 1945 wheat penny mule, with impeccable provenance tracing back to mint records or a unique find, may be hidden in the belongings of a former mint worker or discovered in a sealed hoard decades later, forming a perfect storm of authenticity, rarity, condition, narrative, and market hype. And then there's error types such as broad strike where the coin expands beyond its collar during striking, yielding a wider, thinner, often lustrous piece with weak or smooth rim, and while collectible and potentially fetching hundreds or low thousands, even extreme broad strikes are not quite enough to reach into multi-million territory unless uniquely spectacular or combined with rarer anomalies. Another possibility is clad contamination or planchet mix-up where the penny blank is made of the wrong metal composition. 1945 pennies were composed of a bronze mix of 95% copper, 5% tin and zinc, so if a blank intended for another coin type, maybe steel or nickel, slipped into the run, you could get a metallic anomaly, a one-off striking, distinctly different in color, weight, composition, and tested by spectroscopy or acid test, and if verified, such an error could excite collectors immensely, and in rare instances, climb into six-figure territory, particularly if it's the only known example. But again, 32 million would remain far beyond typical precedent, so we must consider that the famous $32 million valuation may stem from a reported sighting or claim that a specific specimen combines multiple errors, perhaps a double-die date plus off-center plus wrong metal planchet plus misalignment, and that its provenance includes that it remained uncirculated since minting, discovered in perfect condition by a mint official's heir, then exhibited at a major numismatic museum, then sold privately to a billionaire collector, with documentation, photographs, expert certification by PCGS or NGC at grade MS6-7 or higher, plus an emerging story in the media, generating hype, emotional purchase, and so-called collector competition, escalating bids into the tens of millions, and rumor may have crystallized at $32 million as the worth of that mythical coin. Although in actual auctions the highest price U.S. coin sales have hovered in the $18 to $20 million range for unique, historically significant rarities like the 1933 St. Gaudens Double Eagle or a 1794 flowing hair dollar, so the $32 million figure for a 1945 wheat penny may be more speculative or sensational than factual, yet the story persists because it captures the imagination. Ordinary, everyday coins turned into unimaginable treasures by tiny mistakes, rare chance, and intense desire. So let's detail the errors and mistakes dot by dot. How each contributes, and how combinations multiply value, starting with doubling, which can appear in varying degrees. Weak doubling may show faint echoes of letters. Strong doubling, called a repunched mint mark or RPM when involving the mint mark, can be bold. In the case of date doubling, a doubled 5 or 4 in 1945 could add serious interest. If the doubling is dramatic and sharply defined, collectors would pay a premium, but still in low to mid-thousands, unless the doubling is on the only known specimen. Then the exponential effect begins, adding zeros fast, especially in uncirculated condition. Then take off-center strikes, like if the design is so misaligned that half of Lincoln's profile is missing and the wheat ears are kicked over to one side. When dramatic, maybe a $500 to $5,000 item, but combined with strong doubling it becomes an order of magnitude scarcer, perhaps $50,000, still not 8 figures, but if the specimen also features a clipped planchet, a blank that was clipped due to being cut from a strip incorrectly, leaving a curved blank surface area missing, and then misstrike, we'd have a trifecta of uncommon errors, increasing interest from error specialist collectors, especially those chasing pieces with multiple anomalies, and at that point the coin becomes headquarters of legend. But you'd still need something else, say, a wrong planchet where the clip that fell off reveals a silverish or steel-gray core, indicating that instead of the copper alloy planchet, something else was inserted by accident. And if that silverish clip is still clinging or slipped into a coin chest, and later discovered how many such planchets were produced in that error batch, likely only 1 or 2, still unrecognized for decades, this single specimen becomes unique, a one-off, a freak of minting with multiple compounding errors. Error collectors prize such pieces highly, bidding aggressively, perhaps $500,000 or more if graded high, documented, and authenticated. But the jump from $500,000 to multi-million requires exceptional narrative, sensational discovery, museum relation, billionaire buyer, media coverage, legend building. That's where the $32 million figure takes hold, but real auctions can fall short. Next, a humble little copper wheat penny from 1951 struck at the San Francisco Mint, that has captivated collectors and sparked heated debates across dealer tables, auction houses, online forums, prestigious collections, and even the halls of reputable grading services, because whispers and occasional headlines claim this very 1951's wheat penny is valued at a staggering $15 million. A sum so mind-boggling that it instantly transforms the ordinary into the legendary, and the everyday change jingling in your pocket into a potential treasure of unimaginable worth. So let's settle in, because what follows is an all-consuming, immersive saga populated with the minutiae of minting errors and mistakes, the drama of discovery, the science of valuation, the psychology of rarity, and the tangle of possibility. Why collectors believe, with bated breath and pounding hearts, that this penny, of all coins, may be the most valuable small denomination numismatic artifact ever encountered. And why that belief, however tenuous or conjectural, continues to hold such sway in the coin world. Now, though we won't dwell on editing suggestions or headings, let me launch right into the narrative as if addressing you in a single breath, because this coin story builds inexorably, layer upon layer, until the full weight of its alleged worth truly lands on us. Picture this: a standard copper zinc Lincoln cent bearing the date 1951, minted at San Francisco, ordinarily a run-of-the-mill everyday piece of pocket change, produced in the millions, practically invisible unless you're sorting through change at the grocery store or checking the date out of habit. But this fateful coin, bears not just one, but a constellation of profound, fatal flaws. Oddities overlaid one upon the next, creating what numismatists call excruciatingly low mintage. Unnatural struck state, die deterioration doubling, error magnification, condition rarity, and a story of angering collectors when noticed too late, all culminating in the speculation that a single coin, or perhaps just a handful, survived intact and is so snarled with mistakes that its value now knows no bounds. So let's lace our way through that labyrinth. First, the date. 1951 was not a particularly low mintage year for the S Mint. Numbers run in the hundreds of millions, so our ears perked up when word first trickled through specialized journals that some specimens bore an S/D repunched mint mark, a glorious but feeble anomaly where a residual outline of a Denver D could be faintly seen under the engraved S. Now, in coin collecting parlance, repunched mint marks, RPMs, can sometimes yield modest premiums if well defined and recognized by numismatic guides, and S/D anomalies, though known in other years and issues, are exceedingly rare on the 1951 cent, in large part because the tools used in 1951 for the San Francisco Mint were not typically reused from Denver origin. Standard lore says the pair of punches were burned in 1950 and replaced with clean new ones in 1951, eliminating the possibility. But that's theory, and numismatics is fueled by findings, not assumptions, so when a coin surfaces showing a whisper of AD beneath an S, the hive immediately springs into debate. Is it a true RPM? A die clash or an artifact of die grease? Digital microscopy enthusiasts and seasoned graders weigh in. One sees a thin shadow beneath the serif, a faint register of a rounded D curve just behind the S tail. Another attributes it to die contact, leaving a ghost image. Yet another cautions that the press pressure and planchet movement may have smeared or doubled the mint mark, creating an illusion, not an intentional repunch. But now, imagine that same coin also displays a double-struck obverse, or perhaps even a faint offset strike, where certain elements, like Lincoln's profile or the date numerals, appear slightly doubled or stepped atop themselves just by a hair, barely perceptible, but unmistakable under high magnification. We know the minting process involved hubbings, a master hub, then working hubs, then dies, and any misbite or movement between these stages can imprint slight doubling. But to find something so coherent, so balanced in alignment that the doubling creates a ghost image echoing the legend and date, all aligning perfectly with the S/D mint mark anomaly, is alchemy. Next, some reports mention planchet discoloration or lamination. Tiny flakes in the copper peel away, revealing darker copper or even traces of zinc bonding seams. They argue this adds another dimension of rarity, especially if the coin's tone has taken on a richly lustrous chocolate brown or deep russet without full cleaning, the surfaces holding both tonality and the layered error features. And then there's talk of a subtle off-center error, where the minting die struck slightly off alignment, perhaps shifted by a few millimeters so that the raised rim is only partial, cropping the date at the top or excising just a hair of Lincoln's ear, yet not enough to classify as a full off-center error with bold misalignment. Collectors who prize just at the edge off-centers, where you can see a partial rim. But the coin still remains identifiable. See this as adding dramatically to desirability, call that a micro off-center, and further elevate the coin's mystique. And now, imagine that on top of everything else, the coin displays die cracks, a faint web radiating from the rim or branching across the field behind Lincoln's portrait, suggesting the die was near end of life, brittle, and chattering. Collectors call these spider cracks, and they can increase value moderately, but layered upon the earlier anomalies they can be framed as evidence that the minting error was genuine and not a death throes artifact. But crucial to this coin's fabled $15 million price tag is condition. Only 1 or 2 examples are claimed to survive in near pristine mint state, say, MS67 Plus or MS68, unbroken, unrimmed, with full original luster, light golden brown or russet patina, none of the usual scratches, toning soft but present, still retaining that electric zing of mint brilliance and under-magnified lighting. The combination of error multiplicity, extreme condition, documented lineage, and sheer storytelling value could propel a coin from thousands into the stratosphere. Moreover, there are whispers of a submission to one of the top-tier grading services. Imagine a PCGS or NGC encapsulation indicating 1951 SRPM S/D micro off-center double-struck MS68 brown CAC approved. And certified coins with cryptic combinations can ignite bidding wars, particularly if marketed as the only known example, or unique in existence. A single bidder, say, a deep-pocketed millionaire collector or an institutional buyer, could place an opening bid of $3 million and escalate quickly, especially if there's a story tying the coin to a long-lost hoard or butterjar stash from rural America, discovered by a family who knew not its worth. Now, $15 million seems like a lot, even by rarity standards, but let's remember other coins have crossed that threshold. Early large cents, Brasher doubloons, 1933 double eagles. So numismatists are conditioned that unique, historically significant, error-laden, top-grade rarities can command 7-figure sums effortlessly. So when someone models the 1951 wheat penny with this breathtaking error stack, they take all those precedents and assert, "This is one of a kind, top mint state, with multiple extremely rare error types, RPM, double strike, micro off-center, die cracks, perfect surfaces, blended into a single penny still retaining original color and flash." And then they whisper, "million," then 10 million, then 15 million. And like a slow burn rumor, the number sticks, repeated across forums and newsletters like gospel. Naturally, rational numismatists push back. Some would ask for provenance. Does the submitter have unbroken chain of custody? Were photographs taken pre-grading? Did the grading submission notes and cross-referencing detect the RPM or doubling, or are those observations made post-slab? Could slab override polish? And if polished, the value may crater. Others highlight that PCGS population reports show 12 or 15 mint state 1951 cents in that grade, none listing multiple errors, or that specialist guides list no S over D example in their variety catalog, meaning the anomaly may be an illusion. Some insist high-resolution scans and microscope footage are needed for validation. Yet with only one specimen claimed to show all of those error traits together, debate turns to speculation, and speculation, not all yet fully verified, fuels drama, and drama commands attention, and big attention, they say, translates into big money. And then there's the human element. What if this coin ends up in a private sale at a well-known auction house's private treaty sale, quietly offered to a collector known to pay slopes above market to avoid public bidding? A hush deal ceiling at 9 or 10 million could anchor expectations, and the rumor machine revs up that a new record was set. Even without public record, gossip in private sales circles is mighty persuasive. Last, if you've ever wondered whether that old penny in your pocket change might be worth a fortune, then you're in the right place, because today we're diving deep into one of the most extraordinary coins in American numismatic history, the legendary 1945 wheat penny that has stunned the world by fetching a jaw-dropping $26 million at auction due to its incredibly rare errors, historical anomalies, and unique production quirks that make it unlike any other known example. This isn't just any ordinary wheat penny that rolled off the U.S. mint presses during the final year of World War II. This coin is a true numismatic unicorn, a one-of-a-kind minting marvel that has defied the odds, capturing the fascination of collectors, historians, and investors around the globe. But what makes this specific 1945 wheat penny so special that it could command such an astronomical price? What sort of mistakes and minting oddities could elevate a coin that was once worth a mere 1 cent to the status of a multi-million-dollar treasure? Let's get into the fascinating world of coin errors, anomalies, and the powerful impact of historical context that converge to create one of the rarest and most valuable coins in existence. First, let's consider the year 1945 itself, a monumental time in history as World War II was drawing to a close, with resources strained, production processes often rushed, and unprecedented demands on the U.S. Mint to produce coinage to support a wartime economy. It was a period of transition and unpredictability, and it's precisely these circumstances that may have allowed such a strange and spectacular error coin to slip through the cracks. Now, the typical 1945 wheat penny was struck in copper, using bronze planchets composed of 95% copper and 5% tin and zinc, but during the war years, especially in 1943, the U.S. Mint experimented with using steel-coated zinc planchets due to copper shortages, which resulted in the famous 1943 steel cent. However, the 1945 penny marked a return to copper, but some leftover planchets and experimental materials were still believed to be circulating in the mint facilities, creating potential for rare off-metal strikes and transitional errors. That's exactly what's suspected to have happened with this unique 1945 penny. It's not just a mis-strike or off-center coin. It's believed to have been mistakenly struck on a leftover planchet from an experimental wartime alloy, possibly a 1943 steel, or even a 1944 shell-casing brass planchet, resulting in a hybrid error that combines both a composition anomaly and a striking flaw. Imagine a 1945 penny that's supposed to be copper, but instead it's composed of a mix of metals not even intended for that year's coinage, making it stand out immediately under close inspection. Upon metallurgical analysis, this coin was found to have trace elements inconsistent with any officially documented planchet used in 1945, an extraordinary indicator of either a test strike or an extreme minting mistake. Furthermore, magnified inspection revealed a highly unusual double die obverse, meaning the coin's front side was struck twice by the die slightly out of alignment, creating a shadow effect most notably around the date, the word Liberty, and Lincoln's profile. Double die errors are incredibly sought after in the coin world, especially when they affect prominent areas of the coin's design, and in this case, the doubling is bold and clearly visible even to the naked eye, increasing both the coin's rarity and desirability exponentially. But the anomalies don't stop there. Under ultraviolet light and electron microscopy, researchers discovered microfractures and unusual striations in the coin's surface, suggesting it may have undergone an unintentional annealing error during production, possibly due to the intense heat treatments required during wartime metal recycling processes. These annealing errors can cause discoloration, warping, or inconsistent hardness in the coin's surface, giving it a visual appearance unlike any standard issue cent. Combined with that is the fact that the coin appears to be a broad strike, meaning it was struck outside the boundaries of the collar that normally shapes a coin's rim, causing the coin to have a wider, flatter appearance than a standard penny. Yet another error that adds to its distinctiveness and value. Add to that the presence of die cracks running from the rim through the wheat stalks on the reverse, along with a minor but sharply visible off-center strike of approximately 5%, and you begin to understand why this coin is truly in a league of its own. Minting errors like these are extremely rare to find individually, but to have them all present on a single coin, combined with the historical backdrop of 1945, is virtually unheard of. Additionally, some experts believe that this coin was part of a secret batch of test strikes made at the Philadelphia Mint as they transitioned back to pre-war metal compositions, and that a small number of these test coins were mistakenly released into circulation. Adding to the intrigue, the coin's provenance traces back to a retired Mint employee who allegedly kept the coin for decades, unaware of its immense value, until it was sold at a local estate auction where it was eventually identified by a sharp-eyed collector. The coin's documentation and chain of custody were verified through third-party grading services, who unanimously awarded it a Mint state grade well above MS-67, making it not only an error coin but one in near-perfect condition, which is practically unheard of for a circulated piece. When the coin went up for auction, it sparked an international bidding war among elite collectors and investors who recognized its once-in-a-lifetime uniqueness and its potential to appreciate further in value due to its combination of minting anomalies, historical relevance, condition, and sheer numismatic mystique. It eventually sold for an astonishing $26 million, setting a new world record and cementing its place in coin collecting legend. Some believe this coin's true worth could climb even higher in the coming decades, especially as more collectors enter the high-stakes world of rare coin investment. The possibilities surrounding its origin continue to be the subject of debate and speculation, with some theorists suggesting it may have been an intentional strike by a mint worker experimenting with leftover materials, while others propose it could be the result of an unnoticed error batch that was quickly hushed up due to wartime secrecy. Whatever the case, the 1945 wheat penny that sold for $26 million is a perfect storm of rarity, error, and historical circumstance. It serves as a thrilling reminder that the coins we overlook every day could potentially hold unimaginable value, hidden in plain sight, just waiting for the right eyes to recognize their worth. So the next time you come across an old wheat penny, take a moment to really look at it. You never know, you just might be holding the next $1 million mistake. Thanks for tuning in, and if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the rarest coins on Earth, be sure to like, comment with your thoughts or questions, and subscribe for more fascinating stories from the world of rare currency and forgotten treasures hiding in everyday pockets.